All right, welcome everyone to tonight's episode of USF Football History. I'm your host, Chad Birger. Tonight, what we're going to do is talk with a USF living legend, former quarterback, Dax Michelena. He's here tonight to join us and talk about his time with the Cougars. So I'm really glad to have you here, Dax. Dax is a good friend of mine. I was able to play with Dax with the Cougars during my playing years, and so I am very excited to have Dax joining us tonight. So welcome to the show, Dax. It's good to have you here.
Thank you, Chad.
All right.
Throwing it all out of proportion as always.
Hey, if we can't call ourselves living legends, who can? So Dax, you came to USF in 1997. You came after a nice career at Sheridan High School out in Wyoming. And so I know like you won the state championship at Sheridan, right?
My junior year, we lost our senior year.
Okay. And so you were kind of a hot commodity. So what was it like getting recruited out of high school in Wyoming to come to USF at the time?
Well, there wasn't a lot of recruiting out of Wyoming at that time. I think I mostly got hit up because of Coach Sim is a Sheridan native.
Okay. So like the same year that you came to USF, you know, obviously Curtis Riggs, who was a previous guest on this show, was just kind of finishing up his career at USF. He was a Wyoming guy. He was from Green River. But you came in the same year as a couple other quarterbacks out of Wyoming as well. Brad Karstens and Isaac Miller were both coming from Cheyenne, and then Zach was coming from Green River too. And so basically, did they just go out to Wyoming and say, "Hey, if you're a quarterback for starting quarterback for one of the teams, come on out and play for us"? Or how did that all work?
I think we had like 5 or 6 quarterbacks that year.
Yeah, it was really interesting. So from an outsider's perspective looking in, you know, I wasn't at USF at the time. But, you know, after Curtis had left after the 96 season, you know, there was a question of who's going to start at quarterback the next year. And there was a guy named Chip Gardner, I believe, that was supposed to start going into the 97 season. And then something happened with his eligibility and he was unable to play.
Too many semesters. They found out like during fall camp or right before fall camp.
Yeah. And so he was ineligible to play going into that season. And so I think, did Danny Martin start the first game?
Yeah, they brought Danny in from, Yeah,
so Danny Martin was a quarterback from Morningside.
Yep.
Who had transferred up with a bunch of the other Morningside guys. Morningside at the time had decided to kind of discontinue their football program. And so Danny came up with a couple other guys and started the first game. And I remember I was at that game. I was getting recruited. It was down in Beersford. You guys were playing Concordia. And so the first half, it was kind of slow, kind of, you know, sluggish. And I've heard a few other of our former teammates' recollections of what happened. But USF really struggled the first half of that first game. And at halftime, basically there was just a decision to switch to to you as quarterback.
No, Danny got a concussion.
Okay, that's what happened.
He got knocked out with concussion.
Yeah, and so you went in as a true freshman. And what was going through your head at the time?
I have no idea, man. It was all over the place. Just trying not to screw up.
I had
no idea. I think I got moved over to learn quarterback plays that week or something. I'd been playing corner and kick returner. So I just dropped back and try to throw the ball to somebody in the same color uniform. I had no idea what was going
on. Okay. So when I came to USF, we ran a Veer option offense when I was in high school. And I came to USF, and I had the toughest time understanding what Coach Sim was saying.
Unless he's yelling, yeah.
Well, he's like, "You Birger, you run the K protection and the P protection." I'm like, I don't know what any of that means, Coach. I don't know what you're talking about.
I came from the same offense as you.
Right. So what? I don't even understand like how a true freshman could come in and comprehend what was going on there. did they change the play calls a little bit for you? Did they try to run some stuff that you were familiar with, or how did that work?
Let's just say they completely dumbed it down. I mean, they made it as easy as possible. And I'm not gonna lie. I mean, I had great guys around. You got to remember, I had Reuter, I had Harold, I had all these guys with experience in the championship team. I remember a game where Andy Harold turned around and told me to audible. I'm not kidding. I remember him turning around and saying, "Dude, audible to the other side."
That's
okay.
Funny.
And it worked. I think it was like a 40-yard run by Reuter. I mean, it was.
Yeah, so like Reuter obviously had a lot of experience coming into that season. He had started the previous 2 seasons at tailback. You also had David Fish back there a little bit. So you had a pretty decent backfield going on. You had a really solid offensive line during that 1997 season. Eric Struck was moved in and played center a little bit, but you had the whole right side of the line. Rob Shaw, Andy Harold, as you mentioned earlier, were back. You had Jason Grenovich, who was one of those guys who came up from Morningside playing left tackle, and then Jake Kloos playing left guard. So you had a pretty decent offensive line, some really good running backs. Was part of your goal just like, hey, don't screw this up, or were you pretty confident in your abilities at that point?
No, there's a lot of don't screw up. Absolutely. And it was a lot of, I'm sure I went the wrong way and just made whatever happen I could, or, I'm sure Sim was just swearing the entire time on the sideline.
Well, you guys ended up pulling out that first game, and it was pretty cool. But then you got beat the next week. I think it was against.
No, we lost that Concordia game.
No, we won.
For Jamestown. Sorry, Jamestown's the game I came in on.
Yep. Okay, Jamestown is the game that we lost.
That's the game I came in because of concussion. Yeah, that's right.
Yep. So I'll pull up some of the stats here. Some of the other things that happened. We had that season. I don't know if you remember a whole lot of the stats, but Travis Krant ended up being the leading receiver that season. He had 674 yards and 6 touchdowns. So obviously you developed a pretty decent relationship with TK. And then Jeremy DeCurtins had 541 yards and 9 touchdowns that season. Jason Yurkovich, I don't know if you remember that name. Yep. He had 479 yards and 9 touchdowns. So we actually had a pretty prolific passing attack to go along with that strong running attack that we mentioned earlier going on that season. And then some of the tight ends, Mike Nelson had 534 yards and 3 touchdowns, and John Sandholm had 173 yards and 2 touchdowns that season as well. So some pretty decent receiving core that you were able to walk into that season to work with. So that's a pretty nice feature for a quarterback coming in.
Absolutely, and they did a phenomenal job of showing me what the passing game was at that time. Like you said, we came in as a Veer option. We threw the ball maybe 10 times a game in high school, and I was playing running back. So for those guys, I mean, yeah, I was very blessed that first year for sure. Well, and you didn't say anything about our defense. You got to remember, our defense was just killing people at that time.
Yeah. So obviously, the defense had quite a few returners from the '96 squad. Chuck Morrell was still on that defense in '97. Who were some of the other? Do you remember any of the other guys that played defense? I mean, obviously Matt Ornelas was there.
Yep, and I remember Monty Love, and Hilsenroth, and Phil Porter. I think he held the record for interceptions in a season or something for a long time. I don't know if he still has that record.
It's since been broken, but yeah.
Okay.
Yep. Yeah, he was a phenomenal defensive back.
Yeah.
So, 97, you came in, you kind of, spearheaded the charge, and it was pretty cool because you guys ended up making it to the national semifinals that year, losing out at Willamette in Oregon in the semifinals. That's one of the things I remember when I was getting recruited. They brought me in and watched film and said, "Hey, watch how we run this inside zone. This is amazing stuff." But I think, it's one of those things where I think you guys just ran out of time. The offense got going a little bit too late in that game.
Yeah, that was the first time I think I'd ever seen a fly offense. That was new. So that was a very kind of a new offense they ran. I think our defense had a little trouble in that first half, but their defense was stingy. I mean, they were all over us. They were just fast, and we played on this really, I think it was a minor league baseball field or something. So it was like a carpet turf. So it was like really fast. They were just really quick.
It's kind of funny how, this was 25 years ago, and we've kind of evolved. We've seen a lot of the evolution of college football and football schemes in general, and how things go. Like you said, the fly offense was kind of a new thing back at that point.
Yeah, it's the first time we'd ever seen it.
Live comments are coming in. A couple of our former teammates are chiming in right now. So I don't know if you remember this guy, but Big John Raymond, who played with us in 2001.
I think he got cut.
Chimed in and said, "You guys are ugly. Hey, we appreciate you watching, Big John." And then Zach Rutan chimed in and says, "Jess says hello." So,
hello, Jess. She got us through a lot of the pain and aches. What can I say?
That training staff back in those days was amazing, wasn't it?
Yeah, they were great. You look at what the guys have nowadays. I can't even imagine.
Oh, yeah. I remember, like, Lisa, you'd go in and see Lisa Tiedemann, and she would just, do everything for you. I mean,
yeah,
all the treatments. She'd tape your ankles, whatever. She was there on game day. She must have worked like 80 hours a week back then.
Oh, yeah, constantly. Yeah, they were amazing. I was in there every day, that's for sure.
Later in my career, I was too. So the 97 season, obviously, you guys finished with a national semifinal appearance. I'll bring back some of the stats here. For the season, you finished with 1,707 yards passing for 22 touchdowns passing, and you were the second leading rusher on the season with 757 yards rushing and 9 touchdowns. But your long was only a 36-yarder, so I wanted to point that out.
Thanks, Chad. Yeah,
you probably weren't the greatest long runner in the world. Ruter, on the other hand, had a 60-yard run that season.
Yeah, well, that's because Ruter was a lot faster than I was.
So a couple weeks ago, I was talking with Curtis Riggs on here, and he said that Coach Young absolutely loves to run the option offense, the trap, the midline option, things like that. And Curtis said that one of the things that really frustrated him was when Coach Young used to call the plays, he always wanted to throw the ball a little bit. But you actually, did you prefer running the option, or was it just something that you just kind of took and went with?
I think it was just something I was comfortable with the first couple of years, but as we kind of evolved, like they changed the offense. Obviously, they saw right away I wasn't the Curtis Riggs. I mean, Riggs could just chuck the ball like nobody, and that wasn't my style because that's not what I grew up with. But as it evolved through the time I was there, I think we ended up being almost a 50-50 team by the end there, run and pass. I bet we were pretty close.
Yeah, we weren't quite that close, but yeah, we did throw a lot more in the 2001 season than we did in the couple previous seasons to that.
We weren't even close to 50-50, huh?
Well, I'd say we were probably more like 60-40, 65-35. But we'll get to the 2001 season here in a little bit.
Okay.
I kind of wanted to, walk through your career a little bit as we went. So you came to USF as a true freshman. You probably hadn't even, barely stepped foot in a classroom yet, and you were starting, or you're playing on the football field. What was it like to transition into being like a student athlete, and then what else did you do? Obviously, I know that you played baseball, but what else did you do to kind of fill your time while you were a student at USF?
I did a lot of studying, Chad.
Yeah, well, I mean, keep it clean, obviously, but
just learn your way around, making friends. We always had games going, all kinds of stuff with the guys.
Yeah. And then you played baseball your first couple years, right?
Yes, I did. Yeah.
So what was it like being a multi-sport athlete in college?
Painful. You never had a chance to heal.
So
That's what I remember most.
Yeah, did you play spring ball your freshman year?
I don't remember if I did or not.
I was struggling to remember spring ball my freshman year a whole lot, but yeah, it seemed like spring ball back in those days was a little bit different. But I think the baseball team, took quite a few guys and just said, "Hey, we'll give you a couple $100 scholarship and go out and pitch or play
Yep.
outfield or whatever you can do to help out once in a while." And we'll
Yeah,
be
in that
good.
first year, I actually got to play with Kalen. Kalen played baseball because he had 1 year of baseball eligibility left. So I got to watch. He used to hit bombs. I mean, like nothing I've ever seen. I remember what's that baseball field on the other side of town there? That small little. I don't even know if it's still there.
Nelson Field, wasn't
He
it?
used to he
Right
used to hit it up into that intersection above the hill there,
on
like
12th
into
and
traffic.
Crescent.
I remember hitting a ball into traffic up there.
Oh man.
Yeah.
Um, Rutan actually did the math for us here. He said 90% run. Of course, a wide receiver would say that.
Well, that's just because we had problems catching the ball.
We had no one to catch that year, did we? It was pretty horrific.
We had good tight ends. That's all I know.
So you go away, you go back home for the summer following your freshman year, come back in '98,
Yep.
and once again, I think that was my freshman year. I remember coming in and Danny Martin came back and he looked like a chiseled Greek god, and 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 I came in and I was like, holy cow, these guys are college athletes. And then you came in and I was like, oh, this guy started the previous year. We got a couple of decent quarterbacks. And so there's a little bit of a quarterback, competition going on right away in that '98 season.
Yeah, there was.
Um,
Danny came back in great shape.
Yeah, and Danny started the first game of the year. We went down to Hastings, and I don't know if you remember those fun 6-hour bus rides that we took.
I try not to.
Oh gosh,
I think I remember getting wrapped sandwiches or something. Weren't they like?
We would stop at a rest area somewhere,
And they had like packed lunches.
Yeah. The cafeteria would pack sack lunches or whatever.
Yep.
And so like one of the assistant coaches would have a box full of sandwiches that were wrapped in like cellophane.
Yep.
And another coach would have a box full of, chips or something like that. And another coach would have a box full of apples, and another coach would have a box full of cookies. And you'd sit there and you'd go pick out your meals out of those. And that was our pregame meal for these road games.
And I think I remember it was always the older guys that got to pick the movies. And I don't remember. I can't remember if it was our freshman year or sophomore year that Tombstone. I think that's the only movie we watched on bus trips was just Tombstone. That was the one movie we watched.
Yeah, I remember that too. I always slept through it. I think we watched Braveheart too.
Oh, okay.
That might have been later on. That might have been your sophomore year.
Okay.
But yeah, Tombstone was a favorite for the guys. So yeah, we took this 6-hour bus trip down to Hastings. We, kind of had a rough go of it down there and tied it up on, I think it was like the last play of regulation or something like that. And instead of going to overtime, which was a brand new concept in college football back then, Coach Young decided to go for 2, and we didn't hit the 2-point conversion and ended up losing that one. We came out the next week, Northwestern, ended up losing that one. So we started off 0-2, and then, you kind of got started the following week. We played, I believe it was Dakota Wesleyan out at Howard Wood. And that was the game when you had, 220 yards rushing. I don't know if you remember a whole lot about that game, but our offense just kind of exploded, not literally, obviously, but went off that game with our option offense, and Dakota Wesleyan just couldn't stop us.
I'm not sure if it was that game, but I do remember a game where I forgot my cleats or something, and my dad had to buy me cleats. They only had like size, like 2 sizes bigger than what I wore. And I think it was that game. They were like clown shoes.
So you were wearing clown shoes and you rushed for 220 yards. So that's not too bad.
I don't remember. I think it was that game. I don't know. I don't really remember that, I guess.
Yeah. I do remember it was out at Howard Wood. It was a little bit warm. It was one of those games where, the trainers would put the towels, they'd take them out of the ice bucket and put it over your head when you came back to the sideline to help you cool down a little bit, because it was still, early September, mid-September. It was a little bit warm. But yeah, that was pretty interesting. We obviously still had David Ruter that year, in 98. And so he was kind of a focal point. I feel like maybe the first couple of games of the year we forgot, hey, we've got David Ruter. And then all of a sudden, maybe that third game we were just like, hey, why are we not running David Ruter, 20 or 30 times a game? And so I think you came in and ran the option and put a little bit of life into it.
There's not much you can say about Ruter. I mean, that guy's just a beast. Yeah. It's just fun to watch. He was just fun to watch, and how upset he would get if he didn't score a touchdown on a run. Like he would hyperventilate in the huddle. He just gets so upset. I've never played with anybody with that much like tenacity that he'd get that upset that he didn't score.
And he was such a nice guy off the field.
Absolutely, I know. Unless you played NCAA football on PlayStation, then he was not fun to play with because he'd get mad if you won. Yeah.
Oh man. So let's talk about that. So you lived that 98 season, you lived on the first floor of Burgess. I remember that.
No, I think I was on the third floor.
No, in the 98 season.
Yeah, okay, you're right, yeah.
Because I was down the hall from you. We had a pretty decent floor, I think, that year. And you were one of the first guys at that time that had a computer. Do you remember that had internet access? Do you remember that?
No.
No, it wasn't you, but who was it? Who was your roommate that year? Do you remember?
Rob?
I
don't think he played football. Was it Rob?
I don't remember, but I think someone on our floor had a computer that had internet access, and we were like all over that. We thought that was amazing at the time because we could go on and like chat with girls and other things like that. We have to like look up girls' names in the buzz book and like call them out of the blue. And so that was kind of interesting times back in the day.
I remember the James Bond, the the N64 or whatever was big. Yep. Like that destroyed my grades. That was a time killer.
Yeah, that was something we spent a lot of time on.
Yes.
So, like for the 98 season, I'm trying to think, hopefully some of the viewers out there, we're up to a few here. It looks like we got 6. I'm trying to think of some other stories that happened that year. We went over to Huron and we won over there. I'm trying to think. 98 we would have went out to School of Mines. I think we crushed them pretty big. Black Hills came to Sioux Falls. Dakota State came to Sioux Falls. I feel like we didn't have much of a test going on during the rest of that regular season. So then we get to the playoffs, and we've got Mary coming into Sioux Falls the first round, and they had this defensive lineman. And he was, I don't remember his name, but it was Saint something or other. And we called him Satan because he destroyed our offensive line that game. But David Ruter still ended up with like 300 yards rushing.
Yeah, of course he did. I don't think that's the game I think I got hit the hardest in my entire life. Was that game. I don't know if it was that defensive end or is their backer, but we used to run that naked boot. And the guy got told to check me to make sure I didn't have the ball. And I wasn't expecting it. And I remember I spit my mouthpiece out like it was. And I just remember Yurkovich coming over and knocking him off me. And then, yeah, that was a blackout moment for sure. That was.
Speaking of Yurkovich, one of the things I'll always remember from the highlight tape that season was when David Ruter scored that touchdown. We were playing Nebraska Wesleyan. Yeah, exactly. Ruter scores a touchdown to break Walter Payton's all-time collegiate, touchdown record or whatever it was.
Yep.
And and he's getting up to celebrate, and Jason Grenovich is just down on the ground, just giving these cheap shots to the
body shots, yeah.
backside of this linebacker.
And then you see the guy get up and chase him and kick him, and that guy got the penalty. Yeah.
Oh
yeah.
man,
Grinny was great at that for sure. The club, that's Grinovich.
Oh, those were good times. Okay, so we obviously beat Mary the first round, and then we had to play Olivet and Nazarene the second round, and we were kind of back and forth with them a little bit, and then towards the end of the game, we threw out one of the Travis Krant threw the pass in the tight zone. We threw our reverse pass, and it was incomplete on a late, I think it was a 4th down and short, and so we ended up letting that one slip through our hands a little bit. But obviously we were 1 score away from advancing on that one, so that was kind of a tough loss for us.
Yeah, that was the game. I think I remember Ford had like the opening kickoff return or something. He was running it back, and I don't know if he thought he'd crossed the goal line or something, but someone got to him at the very end and made him fumble. And then that's the game I tore my shoulder. I didn't play the second half of that game, I don't think.
Yeah. So, number one, I will bring this up with Joe Ford because I actually did have a little conversation with him that he has one of the best kick return averages or whatever it was. It was a reception. I think it was like a 48-yard reception, and then he fumbled on it. So I'll make sure that he sees this video and is able to watch that.
Good.
But yeah, that was kind of a disappointing end to our season. I think we could have gone a little bit further. We had some injury issues. I just remember back in those days, we didn't have a whole lot of depth on our squad. It felt like, if 1 or 2 starters got hurt, man, we didn't have a whole lot of guys coming in there that could really take their spots.
No, especially on the line.
Yeah. And like Curtis mentioned a couple weeks ago, he's like, in 96, we had 1 reserve, and that was Rudy.
Rudy Alonso, that plays Rudy.
Yeah. And Rudy played with us in 98 too.
Yeah.
And then I was trying to think of the backup offensive linemen on that 98 squad were me as a true freshman and Derek Webb as a true freshman. It was like we had no depth whatsoever. It was just absolutely insane that we were, going as far as we were back in those days.
Yeah, I mean, we just had tough guys. Again, we had a great defense that year. But like I said, I don't think I played the second half in that game. I think that's the game I tore my rotator cuff, and I tried to play, but I couldn't.
Yeah. So
I think Danny finished that.
So tearing your rotator cuff obviously was pretty rough for you. You ended up missing baseball that whole year, right?
Well, I ended up finding out my other rotator cuff was torn too, so I had both my shoulders done at the same time. Remember, I had a straitjacket. Kuiper used to dress me.
So I was going to bring that up. So, I remember going over to your house, that summer before the 99 season. And, you were sitting there in a straitjacket. You couldn't do anything. You had surgery on both shoulders at the same time.
Yep.
That must have been absolutely miserable.
Yeah, it was the only way I'd be able to get back in time because it was like a 6-month healing. So the only way I had a chance of playing the next year is if I did them at the same time.
Yeah. So obviously you had to sit out the entire 1999 season because of that.
No, I came back, and in fall camp I tore my ACL.
That's what it was. Okay. Yep. So you came
made
back.
It back, and I was playing, and then I think we were running a 2-minute drill, and I scrambled, and I was running down the sideline. I just went to cut, and my ACL tore. No contact or anything.
Man.
See, I had 3 surgeries in 1 year.
Yeah, I'm sure the people at the hospital were absolutely ecstatic to see you.
I'm sure they hated me. My surgeon loved me. Told me I got him a new airplane.
But we definitely missed you, on the field. It was kind of weird.
Isaac did a great job.
Right. Isaac Miller came in, who, he came into USF the same year as you.
Yeah, we played against each other in high school.
He ended up winning the conference co-offensive player of the year that year for the conference, the SDIC, the last year we had it. And so you were out that entire season. So that must have been pretty frustrating for you to not only miss the entire season because of injury, but then also see the guy who took over your spot, do really, really well. I don't know.
Isaac's talented, man. I mean, I knew I had a fight ahead of me if I wanted to play again, for sure. Yeah.
So
Ike's great.
what was the rehab like then for the ACL?
I'm sure it's completely different than what it is nowadays. You wake up and you're in this machine moving your leg like this for a week to get your angle back 90 degrees, and then therapy. It's guys making you cry every day.
Just bending you and twisting you and trying to get some strength back.
A lot of body weight, stuff like that. And then you get to working where you start doing your agility drills and all that. But, yeah.
The 2000 season then was coming up. You must not have played. I'm assuming you didn't play any spring ball that year. I'm still trying to remember some of those spring ball practices and what happened. I just remember Nate Schmelzer would always just absolutely demolish me in spring ball.
There's a name right there.
We'd go half rack, and he would just go as hard as he could, just destroy me.
But I don't think he had any other speed but full speed. But I'm glad he's on our team.
Yeah, exactly. But then you came back in fall camp the following year, and this was kind of a weird situation. So in 97 and 98, Coach Sim was our offensive coordinator, and then he was gone after the 98 season, and we brought in Tom Menage, who came in and was our offensive coordinator for the 99 season. And then he left almost right before fall camp in the 2000 season. And so I remember Coach Young was kind of struggling with, finding someone. And he was fortunate enough that a guy who had played for him was in Sioux Falls and was, kind of helping out with one of the high schools and was willing to come back and do it. And so Kalen DeBoer actually ended up taking that job as offensive coordinator a couple weeks before the season started. So I don't know, what your situation was back in that day. Coming back from an injury, we've got a new offensive coordinator coming in who obviously you knew because you had played baseball with him a couple years before. But, as far as everything and the offense and X's and O's and everything, was there any struggle for you that year?
Well, there was definitely a struggle because I was coming back from those injuries, and like I said, it was a battle between Ike and I, and I think Kalen was trying to get his footing at the same time, and I think we ended up kind of relying on each other in a lot of different ways of getting that offense how we were going to run it, as far as what he wanted to do and what I was capable of doing. So,
offensive line wise, the guys from the 99 season had all come back. So we had me, Struck, Donnie Strother, Cully Puhow, and Brad Lupkus. And so we had a pretty decent offensive line coming back for that 2000 season.
There's some names I haven't heard in a long time. That's great.
Yeah. One of the question marks was kind of like how our receiving core was going to be and how you were going to mesh with those guys. We did have our tight ends coming back. Jeremy Clausen in that 2000 season was kind of the big, huge target. Jeremy was about the most quiet reserve guy ever.
I tried to get that guy riled up, and he just wouldn't bite ever. He just wouldn't do it. I tried hard.
But he would just destroy people on the football.
Oh my God, he was an animal. Him and Rockhead both. I mean,
yeah.
Was Rockhead? Yeah. Rockhead was still there, wasn't he?
Yep.
Okay.
I think so. If I remember correctly, Sandholm played in 97, 98, 99, and then that 2000 season he wasn't with us, and then he ended up coming back in the 2001 season.
Is that how? Okay.
Yep. So you and him kind of flip-flopped your injured years.
Okay.
Yeah.
So wait, so is it Carson's then?
So yeah, so we had Karstens and Clausen as our tight ends in that 2000 season, which I thought was great.
It was. They're both monsters. I mean,
right?
What's Carson, like 6'6"?
He's 6'6", and he's got a good frame on him. And I remember, when we ran that 139, He would run that waggle like no one else, where he would just, block for a while and then just release into the flat. And he was always wide open on that thing. That was always good.
Jimmy ran a great drag. Yeah.
Yeah, you could always hit those guys. But then, another guy, Zach Rutan, came back for the 2000 season. So he was with us in 97 and 98, went back, played at,
Wyoming.
Was on the squad at Wyoming for the 99 season, and then came back to USF in 2000. And you and him kind of clicked a little bit. You were two peas in the pod out there on the football field.
As he liked to say, peas in a pod.
But, I mean, is it what's it like as a quarterback to kind of develop that relationship with a wide receiver? Do you kind of have a little bit of extra work off the field, or how does that work?
I don't think we ever really had that. I don't know if it was just we threw enough, constantly that we just, I could kind of time his steps, or he would kind of know when to turn is when I'd be coming out of my drop. It just kind of happened that way where it was just always meshed up right.
Yeah, you guys had a decent chemistry that year. Couple other guys,
phenomenal. I remember him outrunning a lot of guys.
Well, even like that Northwest Oklahoma game, you ended up with 400 and some yards passing that game. We got crushed. It was out at McEnany in 2000. They had that Al Hunt guy, but
that
guy. they had a safety named Lynn Scott that year, and he ended up going and playing for the Cowboys for a few years.
Really?
After that, yeah. And he played us at McEnany, and I remember Zach outran him on a slant for a touchdown.
I think I remember that play. Yeah, it was like a 4-yard pass for me, and then Zach ran like another 70 yards or 60 yards through their whole defense.
Those are the type of passes that you got to love as a quarterback, right? Because you didn't have
hands down. Yeah,
it's a timing route for you, and your receiver makes you look good and gives you all those yards.
Absolutely, those are the easy ones.
Let me find some other stats here from 2000. Some of our other receiving, Zach led our team in receiving, 706 yards, 8 touchdowns. Jeremy Clausen, as we mentioned earlier, had 434 yards and 5 touchdowns. Nick Corton was actually our number 3 receiver, 292 yards and 2 touchdowns. Robbie A had 205 yards and a couple touchdowns. Brad Karstens, and then TJ Sunderman. So some names to kind of
Robbie
blast from the past for you.
Absolutely.
So that was kind of fun. I enjoyed playing that year. Unfortunately, that was the last year that we didn't make the playoffs. We ended up getting knocked off in our last game of the regular season down at Doane. Do you remember that game down at Doane? They had field turf, and none of us had ever really played on field turf before.
No, I don't remember that game.
Oh yeah, it was kind of crazy.
What? I thought we got beat by like a hook and ladder or something. Or was that a different?
Yeah, that was the Northwestern game.
Oh, okay.
Yep. Yeah, we ended up losing I think 4 games that season, if I remember correctly.
Oh wow. Okay.
We didn't have a great year that year, record wise. We got beat by Northwest Oklahoma. We got beat by Hastings, Northwestern, and then we lost the last game of the year down at Doane. So we finished 6-4 and missed out on the playoffs that year.
Wow.
So that was the last year of NAIA football that USF missed the playoffs. And I remember Coach Young was pretty disappointed because his whole deal with the winning the 96 championship, he felt like, that 95 team was able to get a taste of the playoffs to kind of get them prepared for what they were going to see, coming up or whatever. And, he kind of thought that, hey, our 2001 season is going to be our, great year. And so he wanted to get us some exposure, but we weren't able to kind of climb over that hill a little bit.
Oh, I'm sure I had plenty of my mistakes that year.
Oh, we all did. I mean, I was probably the only perfect player on the offense that year.
There's no snaps over the head.
That's because I wasn't playing center that year.
What, DeCourcy?
Yep, Crazy DeCourcy chimes in here and says,
Canadian. Big hips Rutan. Leave it to Corsi. I love it.
Oh, and then Zach Rutan chimes in. He did break his spleen. It was that Thursday All-Star practice that we had going on, and Dane Starbuck, I think, blew him up on a short route and ruptured his spleen, and so he ended up missing the rest of the season.
Wow. Dane Starbuck is another name.
I'm gonna throw some names out here at you.
That's great.
I felt bad because I texted Dax some pictures of some media guides and things earlier this week, and apparently my text messages didn't go through. So I really apologize to Dax that he didn't get that information ahead of time. But
it's fair. I warned you. I said I got hit in the head a lot. So on my own accord, not behind the line, Chad, when I was out running. So
well, one of my greatest attributes was I didn't give up a lot of sacks, but when I did, I was able to convince Coach Young in the film session that it was the quarterback's fault.
Why am I not surprised? Of course you would convince him of that.
DeCourcy says, "What's up, Dax? You guys can just text each other later on, okay?"
Yeah, you gotta give me his number.
Chime in. Yeah, I'll send it over to you.
Next time I'm out, I gotta trim out for St. Patty's Day.
Oh man. Crazy. Yeah, hopefully we're out of all this stuff that we're in right now and people can go out and do things. And
yeah, they said, are they having football yet?
Well, so right now the plan is they're going to cut it down to a 10-game season.
Okay.
As far as USF goes, but that's assuming that we're able to move on with everything that's going on. I don't know what's going on. I think we're all just kind of playing it day by day right now. I'll let DeCourcy chime in here. We'll move up to the 2001 season in just a little bit. So times. As I mentioned, the 2001 season was kind of what we were building up to. A lot of us had come in either the 97 or 98 seasons and through red shirts or injuries or whatever, we ended up having that senior season be the 2001 year.
Yeah.
So it worked out that way. And, obviously we did a 2001 season recap with some of the guys here a couple weeks ago and went through the season. But it started out in kind of a weird note in that, the guy who was going to start at right tackle for us, Ty Lessman, ended up having, a heart issue before the season even started. And so we had, Josh Gillen stepped in and played right tackle for us. And I thought did a pretty decent job that season for not having, been expected. He was recruited as a defensive lineman and stepped in and played O-line for us.
In true USF fashion, you don't play the position you get recruited as.
Right. Yeah. Big John Raymond came in, played left tackle for us. He was a stud. We had Sandholm. We had Karstens at tight end. We had Rutan, Robbie, Rex Metzger. Our wide receivers were guys that had all played before. And this was kind of the year that, in the previous couple years, we were a little unsure with our running backs. And then all of a sudden, Nick Corton stepped in that 2001 season and really stepped up and had a great season, which probably made your life a lot easier as a quarterback when the defenses aren't keying on you necessarily. But
I got to give Nick a lot of credit. He played the year before that. And I probably should have given the ball a lot more that year. I mean,
well, you're just making your reads on that option, right?
No, which aren't always right. Let's be honest.
But yeah, Nick in that 2001 season had just a phenomenal year.
Yeah.
And I remember like the game down at Northwest Oklahoma. They had just come up to Sioux Falls and absolutely demolished us the year before. And we went down there and pretty much did the same exact thing to them down in their place. And so that was kind of a pretty cool thing to do.
Yeah, that was I remember we killed them. And we weren't even expecting that. We were expecting a good game.
Yeah. And then I don't know if you were able to watch the 2001 season recap, but do you remember like the motel that we stayed in down there and just how crappy it was? And I mean, this is
No.
probably like 2/3 of our road trips that we went on playing at.
Oh yeah. I mean, yeah. If you're gonna talk about that, I still remember we went to Wisconsin. I think it was the
Ladies
last year
Coast,
Rutan
Wisconsin,
played.
Mount Scenario, yeah.
Yes, and we had to get change in a classroom with desks and chairs that were stacked. That was
And
our
then,
locker room, and then we had to get back on the bus and drive to the field.
and their stadium, instead of having like bleachers, they had logs on the side of a hill that people sat on.
Yes. Oh my gosh, and we had those great track suits.
I think I've still got one of those in the house.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Why are you not wearing it? That's the question.
I should have put it on before. Yeah, I don't know what I was thinking. Oh man.
Wow.
Yeah, so like the 2001 season, I mean, the second half of the year we rolled through, and then we got to the playoffs and we had to go up to Mary. And at the time we were the number 5 team in the country and they were the number 2 team in the country.
Yeah, we got gypped on that. That was a really weird setup for them to put us against each other in the first round.
Yeah, and then so we kind of went. We got up early, and then they came back, and then they took a lead late, and then we ran that 139, and you hit Rutan on that backside post.
Yeah, on his toes. I mean, I almost overthrew it. He barely got that.
Yeah, and then we ended up scoring, and then so we're down by 1 point, and I brought this up a couple weeks ago, but
Kuiper, yeah.
Yeah, and then we're relying on Matt Kuiper to kick the extra point, and of course he doinks it in.
He would have been living in Mary if he would have missed that.
And we go to overtime, and the overtime, I don't remember exactly what happened. I think we stuffed them in their possession.
Our defense killed them. I think we had like 3 sacks in a row or something.
Yeah, David Bernal.
Bernal. Yeah, he went nuts. Yeah,
and we get the ball, and I think Corton, the first play, runs it down to the 1 yard line.
Yeah, we did that fake bubble counter thing that we used to run.
Yep.
Yeah, yeah.
So describe that play, because that play was absolutely insane. I don't know how that ever worked, but it seemed to work all the time.
Oh, I love that play. You don't block the defensive end, so you can pull 2 guys. Because the defensive end, every time you fake that bubble pass, he would jump in the air every single time, so you wouldn't have to block him. So you could pull an extra guy around for the counter. That was a great play. DeBoer and I came up with that, I think, or Zach and DeBoer. I don't remember how it came about, but yeah.
Yeah. So you guys are just sitting around watching film, and you're like, "Hey, that defensive end jumps every time the quarterback bumps."
Something like that.
So you're like, we should put that in. We'll try it. And so, yeah, you guys put it in, and sure enough, yeah, we get an extra blocker out in front and run it down to the 1 yard line. And then you, of course, sneak in the quarterback sneak to win the game.
Yeah, I think it took us 2 tries, didn't it?
No, I'm sure that our offensive line was dominant enough that we were able to get it in the first.
I do remember we always did quarterback sneak left, though.
Well, so that later on in the playoffs, the next round, we went and played. We played at home against Concordia in the rainstorm.
Oh, that was nasty.
Yeah,
that was cold, rainy, and windy. Like I've never played anything like that since.
That was the coldest I've ever been in a game. I remember at halftime we went in and just turned on the hot showers.
Yep.
And everyone just stood underneath the shower with their full pads on just to warm up.
Yeah, because you were already soaked anyways. It didn't matter.
Yeah. But that was the game where it was like short yardage, and we just ran quarterback sneak. And basically, I was at center, Brad Lupkus at left guard, John Raymond, John Sandholm. We had just all kinds of beef on the left side of our line. And we were in a quarterback sneak, and you kind of took it, and you started going left, and you kept drifting left. And all of a sudden, you're taking it around the edge for a touchdown, like a 35-yard touchdown. And you're all like, oh, hey, that was a quarterback sneak. Like, how did that happen?
I actually think Cloud. Oh, there's another name from McLeod.
Yep. Corey McLeod. Yep.
I think he always led to that side too, or something. Didn't he? Didn't he like hit the edge or something? Because something happened there. I remember like something opened like the floodgates, or it was just a weird opening of space and there was just nobody there. I remember that play, yeah.
Yeah, that was crazy. Let's say Rutan's going to chime in. High snap. Yeah.
There's Rutan. He was our best blocking receiver, though.
Because he had those wide hips.
Yeah, that, and he knew how to hold.
So then we go down in the semifinals down to Benedictine, and that must not have been an incredibly fun game for you because I think I remember that we ran like 33-37 check for like the entire second half.
Yeah, I think I started that game off. I think I had a horrible game, if I remember right. I think we tried one of those fake option and like throw it back across the field to the tight end. Like we'd sneak Carson against the flow all the way. I think I threw a pick like down, like we were driving to score, and I threw a pick or something there. I don't know. I think I might have thrown like two picks, 3 picks or something in the first half. Like I had a horrible game. Corton saved my ass that game for sure.
Yeah.
Because he just ran like a maniac.
The offensive line was dominant that game.
Oh, I'm sorry. The offensive line, yes. I apologize. I remember you ran all the way down to like 90 yards in that long run. You were right there besides Corton. I remember that. Yeah.
Oh.
He zigzagged. He probably ran 180 yards.
That was phenomenal. He was so out of gas on that one too.
Oh, he like fell into the end zone. Like he had a heart attack at the end.
Oh, good times.
Yeah, no, he was amazing.
Of course, he says best tailgate of the year.
The one thing I do remember about that Benedictine game, though, and it's dumb that I remember it, but the refs we had that game were the refs from the movie Varsity Blues. They were the guys who were the refs in that movie because I remember they kept talking about it the whole time during the game.
I didn't remember that. That's awesome.
They wouldn't shut up about
it. You're like, yeah, we get it. You guys are on a movie. Move on. Oh, man.
No, but that was a bad game. That was probably my worst game that year.
And then, like, the championship game, I think, we went in. It was kind of a weird deal.
Wait, you forgot a game. We beat Concordia.
Yeah, Concordia was the rain game.
The rain game. I'm sorry. Yeah, you're right. Okay.
Yep. And then we went down to Benedictine, and it was almost hot down there. We beat them. And then we go to the championship game. And, I thought offensively we played pretty well. Defensively, I don't think we could keep up with their horses that they had. We talked about this earlier. Their offensive line guys were guys that had played at, like, Ohio State and Kentucky.
Yeah, they had, like, 2-foot splits or something. Like, they had, like, an extra gap in between each guy. Yeah,
they were a little bit ridiculous. Their quarterback was like a 3-time National Player of the Year.
Yep. Eddie.
So, we put up 27 points that game, but they put up 48. So it's difficult to.
We had a couple bad breaks that game too, though. I remember there was a snap that went over my head.
Well, okay, so I did mention this. So every day during this season, this is the first time, 2001 was the first time in my career I'd ever played center. And I had never snapped before that other than maybe spring ball in my life. But otherwise, I was a tackle all the way through high school. I was a guard.
You don't have to defend yourself, Chad. You did a phenomenal job.
I'm going to set up the story here.
Oh, okay.
And so I had never really played center before that year. And one of the first games of the year, I snapped the ball and then I went up to block someone and I jammed my thumb on the defensive lineman. I think it was Dan Durrett was the guy I was blocking in practice. And I jammed my thumb and it hurt me the rest of the season. And it came to the point where every day in practice, I would sail at least one over your head. Right. And I never knew when it was going to be, but at least one snap was going over your head in practice. And I just remember it never happened, thank God, during a game until the national championship game. And then I snapped one over your head in the first half. And I had 3 different coaches at halftime, just chewing me out. Come on, Birger, get those snaps down. That's like, I'm like, no doubt, I'm not trying to snap it over his head. It just happens once in a while.
Yeah, but we had some bad breaks there. There was was it Leo or whoever, like, should have had a pick, but he just, when he went to jump, he slipped.
Yep.
They got like a touchdown right before half or something. I mean, we had a couple of really bad breaks. If they hadn't happened, I mean, we were right there.
There was one, I think they ran a fake punt too against us and picked up a first down and then scored that drive. There's situations like that occur. So
yeah, they were a solid team though, that's for sure. Had a couple of long throws to Zach that he saved me on that I underthrew him a little bit.
Yeah. So let me pull out the 2001 stats here. I wanted to see what we had. Corton led us in rushing. He had 1,600 yards that year. You had 569, so not your greatest, but you did have a 55-yard rush that year. So you must have been tired at the end of that one.
Whoa, was that the quarterback sneak? What was
probably
that?
was. You ended up with 2,500 passing yards and 22 touchdowns that season. And so, like when all was said and done, Dax, in your career, and this is kind of a big deal, you had more than 10,000 total yards combined between passing and rushing. So a very distinguished career. Not a whole lot of guys in USF history have started for 4 years at quarterback. And so that's a pretty big deal. And it was kind of cool to be able to say that, hey, I blocked for that guy along the way. And so, I don't know if you have any memories you want to share, parting memories here about your career at USF.
I was just very lucky to play with a lot of really talented guys and have some understanding coaches because, like you said, I came from a very basic offense in high school. So it's not like the high school kids are running now. They're running what we were running our senior year in college. They're running stuff more complex than that now in high school. So,
yeah. But
story-wise, I mean, it's, I remember the time I threw a snowball and hit Yurkovich in the head at practice. And the TV reporter, I had to go hide behind the TV reporter because Yurkovich was going to kill me. I mean, that's just a random one I'll never forget. No, there's a lot of good times. We had a lot of fun. I got playing that many years. I got to meet a lot of really cool guys, and yeah, it was fun.
Yeah, and it was good to have you. You've come back a couple times for home games and stuff, and so it's been great to see you then. It'd be nice if we could all get together here and now, but obviously, Coach Young's still around and everything, and hopefully, we're all able to see him and everything else in the next couple of years. But what a great guy to play for. He's just one of those guys that you don't ever want to disappoint, but if you do, he's just got a heart of gold, and he's always willing to forgive.
Yeah, Coach was an amazing guy. I mean, I don't think there's a bad thing you can say about him. And I'm sure I drove him absolutely nuts with some of my antics in college. I don't think you even touched on the fact that I got sat that one quarter of a game that we ended up losing because I wasn't going to class or something. But yeah, so I gave him a hard time, that's for sure.
Yeah. So it was great. I'm really glad that you were able to spend some time tonight to talk a little bit about your career and reminisce about some of the memories, and hopefully you had a good time. And I'm waiting to see if anyone else has some comments they want to chime in over here.
Oh, I'm sure someone's got something funny out there to say about me.
Let's see. Beale Street. Okay, Dax. Why did you almost miss the flight back after the game there? I don't know.
I was trying to forget that we lost that game.
So after the national championship game was in Savannah, Tennessee.
Yep.
And after the game, we bussed to Memphis, and we stayed at one of the nicest hotels I think we've ever stayed at.
By far the nicest hotel we've ever stayed at.
But none of us spent any time at the hotel because we all went down to Beale Street to check out what
Yes.
Memphis was all about. And
Yeah,
that was
when I did finally get up the next day, my bed, I didn't even know my covers hadn't been moved yet. I mean, it was untouched. But yes, I think I was I think there was one other person that came in after me. I remember, wasn't it Corton was pretty late that time too?
I don't remember who it was.
I know I wasn't the last. There was one other than me, but
I just remember it was like not too far after 9/11.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
We got to the airport and we were like running really late to get to our flight. And they were just like, "Oh, you guys are all together," and they just opened up something and let us through. Because otherwise, if we would have had to wait through the normal security check, we wouldn't have made our flight.
Which I would have never lived that down, that's for sure. Yeah, Beale Street. That was. I'm trying to remember. I think DeCourcy got some. I think DeCourcy. There's some guy outside in the street with a microphone. DeCourcy sang the Canadian national anthem or something for the whole street. Oh yeah, yeah. That was funny. Yeah,
those were good times, man.
Oh yeah, we'll never get that. That's just fun. Feel sorry for the guys now. They probably totally, because of us, have all these rules and stuff.
I also remember going down to Ground Round.
Ground Round.
You know, go down there for whatever it was. I don't remember.
Long Island iced tea night.
night.
Yeah.
And I remember looking over and seeing Luke Langenfeld at the next table over, and I was like, "Oh man, we are busted," because it was me and you down there.
I'm sure.
And I was like, "Oh man, we're busted." And sure enough, he was cool about it. But
yeah,
I was like, "Oh man, the rest of the team's gonna have to run tomorrow because Dax and I were out tonight."
Well, you probably forgot this. I think I was like 10 minutes late to the first practice of the year. And I had to run while you guys all eat breakfast. I had to run sprints. I didn't get to have breakfast that first day.
Well, that was fun because we actually all watched you while we were eating. Because at the student
and I still blame Rutan because he was my roommate and he left without me.
Oh man.
Oh, Martina.
Martina's chiming in. That was a rough next morning.
He was a beast too. We forgot to mention his name.
Yeah.
Does he still have a record?
He still has the sack record, and then I believe the tackles for loss record. And then he was actually inducted to the USF Hall of Fame this past
congratulations, buddy. That's awesome.
So him and then Andy Harold also.
Oh, that's fantastic.
A couple of your former teammates.
Yeah. Well, they were great players.
Yeah, it's kind of cool, like all the guys that played back in our day. Now we're getting old, and it's kind of cool to sit back and remember, like, hey, like I said earlier, we didn't have a lot of depth, but the guys that we did have were tough, and they were pretty darn good.
Yeah, it'd actually be really funny to sit back, and I'm sure just watching game tape now or something would just be a crack up on some of these games that I don't even remember. There's a whole half of a game I remember because I know I had a concussion, but I still played. And I remember watching the game tape the next week and getting yelled at. I'm like, I have no idea what was going on. So it'd be fun. And unfortunately, we lived back in the day where it's all VHS. So those are, I'm sure, all burned and thrown away. So we'll never see that stuff again. But
I'm going to see if I can talk to Sid Kortemeyer and see if we can find where the archive of the old VHS tapes are. Because
I'm sure they probably recorded over in the next year.
You think they did?
No, they used to recycle tapes. That was my work study job or whatever, was film, where I had to cut up the film every week. I'd use the same 3 tapes every week. So I'm sure those got copied over or something.
Yeah.
It'd be funny if it wasn't, though.
It would be cool if we could track those down. Awesome.
That'd be interesting film session with you guys, watching that, making fun of each other. That's for sure.
The only trouble with football games is they're like 3 hours long, so it would take a while to get through all those tapes.
Yeah, but like Huddle nowadays, I mean, it's like 10-second clips.
Yeah, you just cut everything up.
Yeah, it's quick.
Well, Dax, I really appreciate you joining me tonight. It's been a pleasure. I think that it was cool, like I said earlier, to get to hear your story and have you reminisce. And so Thanks so much, and hang out for just a second. And I'm gonna go ahead and end the broadcast. And so
Good night,
we'll
guys.
see all the rest of you guys at another time.